I watched him walk away from me at the airport like I was nothing. Seconds later, I activated something that changed his entire life forever. Before we jump into the story, make sure you subscribe and become part of our YouTube family. If you enjoy content like this, don't forget to like the video and drop a comment. Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Now, let's begin. I trusted my son more than I trusted myself. Even when the small signs started to show, I ignored them. Because that's what a mother does, right? She believes, she forgives, she hopes, and most of all, she never imagines that her own child could one day become a stranger. It started slowly. At first, it was just small changes. He stopped visiting as often, stopped calling just to ask how I was. When he did come, he seemed distracted, always checking his phone, always in a hurry to leave. "Are you okay?" I asked him once. He smiled quickly. "Of course, Mom. Just busy with work." I nodded. I wanted to believe him, so I did. But deep down, something didn't feel right. Still, I pushed that feeling aside. Because doubt is a painful thing when it comes to someone you love, and I wasn't ready to feel that pain. Then one evening, he came to see me. Not rushed, not distracted, calm, warm, like the sun I remembered. "Mom," he said gently, sitting beside me. "We need to talk." I looked at him, surprised. "About what?" He took a deep breath. "This house," he said, glancing around. "It's getting too much for you." I frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "The bills, the repairs, the stress," he explained. "You shouldn't have to deal with all this alone." His voice was soft, convincing, careful. "I'm fine," I said. "I've managed this long." "I know," he said quickly. "But you don't have to anymore." I stayed quiet, listening, watching him. "I can take care of everything," he continued. "All you have to do is transfer the house into my name. I'll handle the rest. You can just relax." My heart paused for a second. "Transfer it?" I repeated. He nodded. "It's just paperwork. Nothing changes. You still live here. I'll just manage things." I looked around the room. The same walls, the same furniture, the same memories. This wasn't just a house. This was my life. And he was asking me to give it up. But then he reached for my hand. "Mom, don't you trust me?" he asked softly. That question, it always works. Because what kind of mother says no to that? I sighed. "Of course I trust you," I said. And just like that, I made the decision that would change everything. A few days later, we signed the papers. He handled everything. The lawyer, the documents, the details. "All done," he said with a smile. I smiled back. But something inside me stayed quiet, watching, waiting. At first, nothing changed. He still visited, still checked on me, still acted like everything was normal. But slowly, things shifted. He stopped staying long, stopped asking if I needed anything, stopped calling as much. Then one day, he came again. But this time, something was different. He didn't sit down, didn't smile, didn't ask how I was. "Pack your things," he said. I looked up, confused. "What?" "I booked you a flight," he added quickly. Flight?" I repeated. "Yes," he said. "You deserve a fresh start, a better place, less stress." I stared at him. "Where am I going?" "It's all arranged," he replied, avoiding my eyes. "You'll be fine." My chest tightened. Something wasn't right. "Why so sudden?" I asked. He sighed, like I was making it difficult. "Mom, please, just trust me." That word again. Trust. I nodded slowly. Because even then, I still wanted to believe him. The next morning, we went to the airport. He carried my bag, walked beside me. But we didn't talk much. The silence between us felt heavy, different, unfamiliar. When we reached the gate, he stopped. "This is it," he said. I looked at him. "You're not coming?" He shook his head. "I'll visit later." Something inside me broke just a little. "Are you sure?" I asked quietly. He forced a smile. "Of course." I nodded. Then I turned and walked toward the gate, step by step, trying not to think too much, trying not to feel too much. But just before I entered, something made me stop. I turned around. He was already walking away, fast. No hesitation. No second look. No goodbye. My chest tightened. And in that moment, the truth hit me. He wasn't sending me somewhere better. He wasn't helping me. He was getting rid of me. I stood there, frozen. People walked past me. Voices filled the air. But I heard none of it. Because all I could see was my son walking away like I meant nothing. Like I was something to be removed. Something to be forgotten. I looked down at my hands. At the small bag I carried. At everything I had left. And for a moment, I felt something deep inside me crack. Not anger. Not even sadness. Something heavier. Something quieter. Understanding. I slowly walked to a nearby seat and sat down. Alone. Completely alone. But then, something changed. Because instead of breaking down, I stayed still. Calm. Silent. Watching. Thinking. Because the truth was, this didn't surprise me as much as it should have. Not anymore. I had seen it coming. Little by little. Step by step. I just needed to be sure. Sure that he had chosen this. Sure that this was who he had become. And now, I had my answer. I reached into my bag slowly, my fingers finding something small, something hidden, something I had kept safe for years. An envelope, old, sealed, untouched. I held it in my hands and looked at it. "This is why," I whispered. "Because my son thought he had taken everything from me. He thought he had won. But what he didn't know was that I had never truly given him the house. And now, the truth I had been hiding was about to change everything." I sat there for a long time, holding the envelope in my hands. People came and went around me. Flights were announced. Families hugged. Children laughed. Life moved forward for everyone else. But for me, time slowed. Because this moment wasn't just about what my son had done. It was about everything that had led to it. I looked down at the envelope again. It was simple, plain, but inside it was something powerful, something I had prepared years ago. Not because I expected this exact moment, but because I understood something most people don't. Love doesn't always protect you. Sometimes it blinds you. And I had refused to be blind. Not completely. I leaned back in the chair and closed my eyes for a second. Memories came back slowly. Not the good ones. Not the happy ones. But the small moments that I had ignored. The ones that didn't feel right. The ones that whispered warnings I didn't want to hear. The first time he asked about the house. "Mom, is it in your name?" he had asked casually. At the time, I smiled. "Yes, why?" "Just asking," he said quickly. "Too quickly." Then later, he asked again, "What would happen to it? You know, in the future?" I laughed it off. "You're thinking too far ahead." But he wasn't. He was already planning, already calculating. And I saw it. I just didn't want to believe it. That's when I made the decision. Quietly, carefully, without telling anyone. I went to a lawyer, a different one, not the one my son knew, and I set something up. A trust, a protection, not just for the house, but for the truth. "You want conditions?" the lawyer asked me. I nodded. "Yes." "What kind of conditions?" I thought about it for a long moment. Then I said the only thing that mattered. "Character," I replied. The lawyer looked confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, the person who takes this house must prove they deserve it," I said. "Not with money, not with words, but with actions." He nodded slowly. "We can structure something like that." So we did. We built it carefully, step by step. The house could be transferred, but not fully owned, not completely, not unless certain conditions were met. Care, respect, responsibility, and most importantly, integrity. If those conditions were broken, the house would return, immediately, without warning, without argument. The lawyer looked at me seriously when we finished. "Are you sure you want to do this?" he asked. I nodded. "Yes." "Why?" he asked. I looked down at my hands. "Because I need to know who my son really is," I said quietly. That was the truth. Not because I didn't love him, but because I did. And I couldn't ignore what I had started to see. So I waited. I watched. I said nothing. And when he came to me with those papers, I let him believe he had control. Because the real truth was hidden. Right here, in this envelope. I opened my eyes again and looked around the airport. The gate was still there. The flight still boarding, but I wasn't going anywhere. Not anymore. I stood up slowly. My body felt lighter, stronger, like something had shifted inside me. For the first time in a long time. I wasn't reacting. I was choosing. I walked away from the gate, step by step, not rushing, not looking back, because there was nothing behind me anymore, only what was ahead. I stepped outside the airport. The air felt fresh, different, free. I took out my phone and stared at it for a moment. This was it. The moment everything would change. Not just for me, but for him. I dialed the number. It rang twice. Then a voice answered. "Hello?" "It's me," I said calmly. There was a pause. "I was wondering when you'd call," the voice replied. I looked out at the road ahead. "It's time," I said. "Are you certain?" the voice asked. I didn't hesitate. "Yes." Another pause. Then, "Understood. We'll proceed immediately." I ended the call. No anger. No hesitation. Just certainty. Because this wasn't revenge. This wasn't punishment. This was consequence. I slipped the phone back into my bag and looked up at the sky. Bright, clear, open. For the first time in days, I felt calm. Not because things were easy, but because things were finally clear. My son thought he had taken everything. The house, the control, the future. But he didn't understand one thing. You can't take what was never truly given. And now, the system I had built quietly was already moving. Papers were being reviewed. Conditions were being checked. Decisions were being made. And in just a few hours, everything he believed he owned would no longer be his. I started walking away from the airport. Not fast, not slow, just steady. Because I wasn't running anymore. I wasn't chasing anything. I was simply moving forward. And as I walked, one thought stayed clear in my mind. When my son finally realizes the truth, it won't just be the house he loses. It will be something far more important. 3 days passed. No calls, no messages, no questions. To my son, I was gone, sent away, out of his life, out of his plans. And now, in his mind, everything belonged to him. The house, the control, the future he thought he had secured. But truth has a way of arriving quietly, and when it does, it doesn't ask for permission. On the third morning, I stood across the street from the house. The same house I had lived in for years. The same house filled with memories, laughter, pain, moments that built a life. Now it looked different, not because the walls had changed, but because the meaning had. I stood there silently, watching. My hands rested calmly in front of me. No anger, no sadness, just awareness. Because this moment wasn't about losing something. It was about seeing something clearly. Right on time, a car pulled up in front of the house. Then another. 2 men stepped out, dressed in dark suits. Calm, professional, focused. They walked toward the front door without hesitation. I watched closely. Every step, every movement. Because I knew what was about to happen. The door opened. My son stood there. At first, his face showed confusion. Then irritation. He spoke to them, his hands moving slightly, questioning. They responded calmly. One of them reached into a folder and pulled out papers. Official papers. Final papers. He handed them over. My son took them quickly. Confident at first. But then, his expression changed, slowly, piece by piece. His eyes moved across the page, reading, trying to understand, trying to deny. His face lost its color. "No, this doesn't make sense." I could see him say, but it did. Perfectly. The trust had been activated. The conditions had been reviewed. And he had failed. Not because of a mistake. Not because of bad luck. But because of his choices. He had shown no care, no respect, no responsibility. And because of that, the house was no longer his. In truth, it had never fully been his. Within minutes, more people arrived. Workers, officials. They began their job immediately. No arguments, no delays. Furniture was moved. Boxes were carried out. Everything inside the house was being removed. Not destroyed, not stolen, just taken away, like it had never belonged to him. My son stood there, frozen, watching everything fall apart. His voice rose, angry, confused, desperate. He tried to argue, tried to stop them. But it didn't matter, because the decision had already been made. The system didn't care about his words, only his actions, and his actions had already spoken. I watched quietly from across the street. Then slowly, I began to walk toward him, step by step, calm, steady, certain. At first, he didn't notice me. His attention was locked on the chaos around him, on the loss he couldn't control. But then, he saw me. His body froze. His eyes widened. "Mom?" The word came out weak, uncertain, like he wasn't sure I was real. I stopped a few steps away from him, close enough to see everything on his face. Shock, fear, realization. You didn't leave?" he asked. I shook my head gently. "No." He looked around, then back at me. "They're saying, the house. It's not mine," he said, his voice shaking. I held his gaze. "It never was," I replied calmly. Silence fell between us, heavy, unavoidable. "What do you mean?" he asked. I took a slow breath. "I gave you a chance," I said. "A chance to show me who you are." His eyes dropped, then lifted again. "You knew?" he whispered. "Yes," I said. "I saw the changes. I felt the distance. I heard the words you didn't say." His hands tightened around the papers. "I didn't think—" "I know," I said softly. "That's the problem." He looked away. For the first time, he had no answer, no excuse, no way to turn this around. Because this wasn't about paperwork anymore. This was about truth. And truth doesn't bend. It doesn't hide. It simply stands there, waiting to be seen. I looked at the house one last time. The doors, the windows, the life that had once been mine. Then I looked back at him. "This wasn't about the house," I said quietly. "It was about who you chose to become." His eyes filled with something new, something real. Regret. But regret doesn't erase actions. It only follows them. "I didn't mean—" he started. I raised my hand slightly. "Stopping him! Meaning doesn't change what you did," I said. Silence again. Stronger this time. Final. The workers continued behind us. The house slowly emptied, like it was letting go of everything that didn't belong. I stepped back slightly, creating space between us, not out of anger, but out of understanding. Because some distances are necessary. "You still have a choice," I said. He looked at me, confused. "A choice?" he repeated. "Yes," I said. "Not about the house. That's gone." I paused. "About who you become next." He stared at me, processing, thinking, for the first time in a long time. Not reacting, but reflecting. I nodded once, then turned to leave. Each step away felt lighter. Not because I had won something, but because I had faced something, accepted something, and moved forward from it. Behind me, everything continued. The noise, the movement, the consequences. But I didn't look back, because my story wasn't there anymore. It was ahead. And as I walked away, one thought stayed with me. Some people lose everything before they understand the truth. And for my son, this was only the beginning.